Why do I keep pushing people away when I care so much about them? That is the question we are answering today on Relearn Relationships. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you wanted to get closer to someone? Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's somebody you're dating, but you really yearn to be seen, to be understood, and you want to be vulnerable. But at the same time, you find yourself pushing that person away or putting up a wall between you and them, creating this push-pull dynamic where you're trying to get closer to them, but at the same time, you're trying to keep yourself safe. Maybe you find yourself being hypervigilant and constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. So you're very hyper aware of what they're doing. You find yourself really attuning to their mood. Maybe you think of yourself as an empath and you're really good at reading the room. And whenever this person that you're interested in or in a relationship with seems off, you start to question the entire relationship. Maybe you find yourself saying things like, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, or it's too good to be true. This can't really work out for me. It's never worked out before. And again, you're in something you enjoy and you're in a relationship with someone that you believe is a good-willed person, but you also find yourself sabotaging the connection. It's like you can't find that sense of safety and security and groundedness, and you keep coming up with possible problems. If you've been there, this podcast is for you. Now, I want to say a few things before we get into what you can do if you're in this state. Number one, this applies if you truly believe you're in a relationship with a good-willed person, meaning you know at their core, your partner or potential partner is good, and you know that a lot of the eggshells that you're walking on in the relationship, you put down yourself. That when you write it down on paper and you get really clear, you know that this person does care about you. They're not being ambivalent with their feelings. They're not leading you on. They're not creating an insecure atmosphere. Because if you are dating someone who is not being direct, is not being honest, is not being kind, it would make sense that you would feel uneasy and unsure. But if you are dating someone who is keeping their word, they're a person of integrity, they're doing what they say they're going to do, they're showing up, they're kind to you. If you are with that person and yet you're still feeling like the other shoe's going to drop, something's going to go wrong, and you're overthinking, then this is what that podcast is going to help you address. First, I want to say you're not alone. A lot of people go through this. I myself have gone through this in relationships where you're with someone who's a great person, but you just can't seem to settle into it. I know for myself, I would always say things like, oh yeah, we've been dating for a while. And I would purposely use the term dating instead of in a relationship because there was a part of me that worried that it would end. And I thought it would hurt less if I sounded like I wasn't as serious about it as I was. But it would have hurt, right? If the relationship ended, that would have been sad. My heart would have felt broken. I would have had to go through the healing process. Me saying I was dating versus saying I'm in a relationship, because I meant the same thing. We were in an exclusive, loving partnership. It didn't change anything. It was just giving myself an artificial sense of safety because I was trying to protect myself. And if you find yourself walking on eggshells in a healthy relationship, chances are you're trying to protect yourself from something too, and it's not your partner. There are 3 things that often stand out when people struggle with this: a history of childhood trauma or an adverse childhood experiences, old relationship baggage that has not been dealt with, and suppression or projection of emotions. So let's start with the first thing. Early childhood experiences that were traumatic or adverse that left an impression on you. So you've probably heard about attachment theory. People can be secure, avoidant, anxious, and our early childhood development really affects how we naturally attach to someone else. So if you grew up in an unstable household where your primary caregiver was sometimes present and sometimes they weren't, your needs were sometimes met and sometimes they weren't, you might have developed a more anxious attachment style. where you feel really good about a relationship, but then you feel really bad about a relationship because you're expecting the relationship to fit the mold of that first relationship you were in, the one with your parents or your primary caregiver. Because if you are wired for instability, meaning if that was your baseline growing up, your baseline was unstable, then being in a healthy relationship can feel really uncomfortable. It can feel really weird. It can feel boring too. Because if we're used to getting on the roller coaster and riding the ride, then walking in the park is slow and uneasy. And when things don't fit what we're used to, it's normal for us to start to second guess them and question them. So if this relates to you and you're like, Lily, I do that. That's exactly what I'm doing. Like, I am not comfortable with how grounded and stable this energy is, this relationship that I'm in is. I want you to get out your journal and just write about it and ask yourself, what was it like for me when I was little? What was the dynamic in my home like? What are my early memories? And get really curious about that. How did you feel physically? And as you're writing this, I want you to notice that. As you're writing this experience, notice what's going on in your body and write that down. Feel into it. Notice the sensation. Do you feel tight and kind of fluttery when you're writing this? Do you feel heavy? Or maybe you feel really comfortable. Whatever it is, go ahead and write that down. And now I want you to reflect on, how is this showing up in my current relationship? How are these feelings showing up in my current relationship? And where are they coming from? Are they coming from my past memories, my past experience, what I'm used to? Like, am I used to that roller coaster? And so I'm trying to recreate the roller coaster by maybe creating a little bit of tension and friction in my relationship? Or is it already present there? Am I not in a stable, connected relationship to where it's like, actually, you know what? I'm mirroring the relationship I had as a kid. But if you're in a relationship with someone who, again, a good-willed person, someone that grounds you and you feel safe when you're with them, then it might be that when you find yourself being hypervigilant and overthinking, you're just going back to that earlier pattern you had as a child from your learned environment. Or maybe you find yourself creating friction again because your relationship feels kind of boring and you're not used to the groundedness. It feels insecure because your baseline was unstable from the beginning. The second thing I want you to do, if you're feeling that you're hypervigilant in this current relationship, you're overthinking it, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, is to ask yourself, are my feelings about this relationship, or are they from something else? Are they from another experience? Is it really what's happening now, or is it something that happened to me in the past? I was cheated on in a relationship once. And when I went into my next relationship, I had this fear of being cheated on. Like, oh, what if I get cheated on? That's going to hurt. What if he cheats on me? And I wasn't even hypervigilant so much as I was emotionally unavailable to the person I was with because I was holding part of myself back. And it wasn't until I realized that the reason I was holding part of myself back is because I was trying to protect myself. So sometimes we will self-sabotage a perfectly good relationship because of pain that came from another relationship, because someone else did something and we found that hurtful. And now we're afraid that it's going to happen again. So we self-sabotage the connection we're in order to keep ourselves safe. But the catch is, we're not really keeping ourselves safe. We're keeping ourselves from love. We're living out of fear and we're separating ourselves from connection. So as you get curious about this and you start to write about how you feel in your current relationship and whether or not the things that you're being hypervigilant about, the things that are bothering you, where are they more connected? Are they connected to the present? Are they actually happening? Or maybe it's something that happened early on or just in a past relationship, maybe one relationship ago, maybe one dating experience ago. And get really curious, because when we can start to separate our current experience from our past experience, we actually give our relationships a shot. Because your partner cannot compete with the sins of previous partners. You can't hold over their head things that other men or women have done to you. There's a line from an Old Dominion song. It says, You've got to love. Like there's no such thing as a broken heart. And I love that because it's just a reminder that each relationship is a fresh experience. Obviously, we have more wisdom we can bring into it, more experiences we bring into it because, we've been around the block. We know a thing or two. But we also have to be willing to look at that person with fresh eyes instead of judging them through the lens of past relationships. So I would love for you to spend some time reflecting on those two things, those early childhood experiences and past relationships, past adult relationships, and notice if the hypervigilance, if the overthinking, if the concern that the other shoe is going to drop is really attached to your current relationship you're in now, or is it being colored? Is it being molded by past experiences? And then the next thing I want you to do is ask yourself, what am I doing when I start to feel uncomfortable? What are you doing? Do you pick up the phone and call one of your friends to vent? Do you withdraw? Do you send a text message? What do you do when you start to have that uncomfortable sensation? Maybe it feels like anxiety or nervousness, or maybe kind of sadness. You're kind of scared because it feels like the relationship's going to end. What are you doing with that feeling? What are you doing with that sensation? A lot of the times we suppress or we project emotions that we're uncomfortable with. When we suppress them, we kind of gaslight ourselves and we push them away. We're like, I'm fine, it's fine. And we just push it down. We don't let ourselves experience them because we feel so uncomfortable that we want to pretend that they're not actually happening. So we maybe try to pick a new emotion, or we go and do something else and we avoid feeling whatever this thing is. And a lot of times when we want to hide from what we're feeling, we go up into our mind. So again, maybe you call a friend and you start over processing what's going on. And it kind of gives you a sense of calm because you're talking about it, but there's a difference between talking about your feelings and feeling your feelings. And on the other hand, we might go into projecting, where we feel uncomfortable and then we project it onto that person that we're with, the person we're building a relationship with. We project it onto them. So we feel uneasy and uncomfortable, so we decide that they must feel uneasy and uncomfortable. And we give them our emotion, and then we act from a place of believing that they feel that way. So if you feel insecure about your relationship, if that sensation of insecurity comes up in you, and instead of sitting with it and asking yourself why I feel insecure, like why do I feel this way? Where do I notice this in my body? And instead you project it on to the other person, then your mind can create stories going, he feels insecure. I think she feels insecure. And that gets really messy. So the goal, instead of suppressing, instead of ignoring our emotions, and instead of projecting them, throwing them onto someone else, we've got to experience them. And it's a really simple process because if you experience an emotion, it's probably not going to last over 90 seconds. Your body's going to metabolize that emotion and you're going to move on. So the next time you find yourself feeling anxious, insecure, uneasy, whatever it is for you, I want you to just sit with it. Just notice it and say out loud, like, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I feel kind of icky. Describe the emotion and then notice where that sits in your body. Is it kind of a hanging feeling in your gut? Is it a heaviness in your eyes? Like, where is that emotion physically in your body? And just be aware of it, acknowledge it, notice it. And when you do this, you'll probably start to notice that it dissipates, that it moves. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. I think we're kind of taught today that we need to numb our emotions, that if we're sad or we're anxious, we need a medication, we need to do something. But a lot of times we just need to experience it. If we're sad, you need to feel it. Allow yourself to cry. If you're feeling anxious, acknowledge it. Give yourself a hug, do something grounding after you've experienced that emotion. We don't have to run away from them just because they're uncomfortable. Because again, they might be a signal to something that's currently going on in our relationship. And in that case, we can take them in as messengers, or they might be linked to a past experience, a past situation. And when we allow ourselves to sit with the feeling, then we can get more clarity about why it's here and where it's coming from and what it's trying to teach us. I hope this was helpful. I know it can be overwhelming when you're overthinking everything. You want to be with someone, you want to feel secure with them, but you feel like something is holding you back. And if this is you, you're not alone. I've said that before. I want to say it again. You're not alone and you're not broken. These are just signals that there's something deeper that you need to deal with. And if you would like support in that, I encourage you to subscribe to Relearn Relationships to get the podcast and the newsletter in your inbox. And feel free to reach out to me. There will be a link in the show notes if you ever want to book a walk and talk session. I would love to support you and help you pinpoint whatever it is that's going on that is keeping you from connection. Because we are pack animals. We're wired to need each other. It's good to need each other and be interdependent. And I would love to help you get there. Until next time, I hope you choose growth.